Well, welcome back to Practical Church Planting. Today on the podcast, I'm going to be going through our Facebook group and answering some of your ministry questions. Well, hey everyone, and welcome back to Practical Church Planting. In this episode, I'm going to be answering some of your ministry questions that were submitted through the Facebook group. Now, as I begin, this episode was brought to you by Mission Support. We're big fans of Mission Support here at Practical Church Planting, and a number of you have already used their services. Mission Support knows you want to be effective in ministry, but like most pastors today, you probably feel like you never have enough time, energy, or expertise to get everything done. And so Mission Support comes alongside pastors and ministry leaders like yourself as a guide to provide expertise to do the things you don't know how to do and give you back the time you desperately need. So whether it's bookkeeping, SEO, website, a capital campaign, or any other number of services, you can talk to a guide today at missionsupport.com, and go from feeling scattered to focused on your mission. It's possible to love being a pastor again. And of course, if you do check out missionsupport.com, I'll be sure to let them know you heard about them from Practical Church Planting. And if you do, you get 10% on any of the services that you use through them. And they're also already priced pretty affordably. And so missionsupport.com, tell them you heard about them through Practical Church Planting and get 10% off. Now, in this episode today, I'm going to do what I do about once a quarter here on the podcast, and that is to go through our Facebook group and answer your ministry questions. And so not that these questions are necessarily directed at me in particular, but you guys ask a lot of great questions in the Facebook group. We just hit over 2,000 members. So if you're listening to this and you're not part of the Facebook group, be sure to join. But you guys ask really good questions. Sometimes they're hard to give answers in little comments or just in a comment or two. And so I'm just going to go through and answer some of these questions. I'm going to read through them and the ones that are applicable and give some thoughts, and hopefully that can be helpful for you. Now, part of the reason I'm doing this is we do it once a quarter, but also to let you know of something brand new that has just launched, and it's called the Practical Church Academy. Been thinking about this for a while and really excited about it. In fact, if you want to go ahead and join now, you can find the links in the show notes or go to practicalplanting.com. Tomorrow, if you're listening to this live, so tomorrow, which is Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, we're doing part of the Practical Church Academy is monthly ministry coaching calls with me over Zoom. And so the only way to be a part of those, I've done some of those in the past for free, but the only way to be part of these going forward is to be a part of the Practical Church Planting Academy. And so they're free Zoom calls. If you can't make the time, the Zoom calls will be uploaded later onto the site. And so you can watch them at any point. You also get to ask your questions specifically to me that I'll give feedback and answers on. Every week, there'll be a new quick ministry training video under 3 minutes or less. We've got a lot of free resources and trainings. And maybe for some of you, the best of all, if you've been thinking about buying the Growing Your Launch Team course, that's currently $149. We've been doing that course for a couple of years now. It's been really successful. You can actually get this as a part of the Practical Church Academy is also included with the Growing Your Launch Team course. So you could do one of two things. You could spend $149 on the Growing Your Launch Team course, or for $14 a month, you can join the Practical Church Academy and get the Growing Your Launch Team course included and some other things that we'll be releasing soon as well. So check it out, the Practical Church Academy. You can find that on practicalplanting.com, all the information there, and a lot of really just focused attention on you and your specific ministry context, and to kind of really go a step deeper if you found this podcast helpful. Now, here we go. Here are some ministry questions that have been asked in the Practical Church Planting Facebook group. Somebody asked, hello, I'm new to the group, looking for advice. Looks like they're planting a church. They said, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking into the legal setup side of things, and I'm overwhelmed by where to begin. I'm not sure if we should incorporate or do an LLC. I also want to do a state nonprofit as one of the first steps before filing for 501c3 status at a federal level. So the reason I answer this question, I'm really kind of confused by it. But I always want to say this. If you're a church, or a church plant, I would highly recommend you creating a 501c3. Now, depending on if you're a part of a denomination or things like that, you might be under their umbrella. And technically, as a church, you don't have to have a 501c3, at least in the United States. You don't have to have a 501 official nonprofit status for people to get tax write-offs for their giving. However, regardless of where you find yourself, I highly recommend all churches create their own 501c3. If you're part of a denomination now, something might happen in the future where you no longer will be part of one. And so you'd like to have that status. Also, you will probably have, at least in the early days, this was the case for us, people ask if you have a 501c3. And even though you don't have to have a 501c3 as a church or a church plant or a church for people to get to write off their or giving us a tax deduction, people still feel like you're supposed to or feel weird if you don't. And so regardless of where you are in the process, I highly recommend getting that 501c3. And there's a lot of nonprofit discounts for different products and services like Google Apps or Google Suite or Google Business. I don't know what they call it these days. There's a lot of various things like Canva that you get discounts on if you have a 501c3, and they don't care if you're a church. They want to see that 501c3 status. So for a lot of various reasons, loans, other things, I would highly recommend you getting that 501c3 status as soon as you can. Someone said, what are your strategies for moving forward in a season where church attendance is at the point in which we need more volunteers, i.e. more people serving kids ministry, more VBS volunteers, more people bringing food, more group leaders? It seems everyone is pressed to the max of the time they are able to give, but most people aren't going to come unless we have programs in place. And I'm not talking about over-the-top programming. I'm talking about volunteers to bed babies and bringing a meal to someone. I think they're saying essential things. Now, I will push back in one way. It's not, I would say this, it's not that people don't have enough time. If you follow this podcast, productivity, and if you've been a part of some of my online trainings, is a little pet project of mine. I don't think it's people don't have enough time. They just don't handle their time well. I think what's happened with COVID is that people just got out of rhythms with things, and they changed their priorities and how they were spending their time. And so you're like many churches are having people, for example, being a lot more inconsistent with their church attendance and various things like that. So I don't think it's time necessarily as much as it is changed habits and desires, which can be bad, but regardless of the reasoning, a lot of churches are feeling this right now. We're feeling this right now. Here's what I would say. At the end of the day, there's a lot of things you want to do well, and there's a lot of things we want to do well at our church, at New City Church, but I would encourage you in this way. At the end of the day, you only can do what you can do. You only have the people to do what you can do. And so I think one of the challenges for us is that we can, online, church ministry, online, churches, social media, we can see all these churches doing all these things, and we have this external and internal pressure, rather, thinking that, our church must also do X, Y, and Z. And then if you have a dip in attendance or COVID or your church, whatever, you don't have a lot of people for the stuff you want to do, you can feel this pressure of like, oh, we're failing as a church. And so I just want to say this, and they're not doing anything over the top. They're struggling to have just the regular people serving. So I get that. But I think what can help you is just the mindset of, we can only do what we can do. And if we don't have the people or the person to lead this thing, it's not going to be as good as it has been in the past, or we just can't do it. And so, again, there's ways to encourage. Next week's episode, we're going to talk about some of the things that we're doing specifically this year at New City Church that you can implement as well, to talk about the importance of the local gathering and why you should prioritize gathering with your people, which will hopefully help with serving and some of the stuff that we're running into, and I think you guys are as well. But the biggest thing I would just say is that if you can't do some of the things that you want to do, you've got to learn to be okay with that, and I think it'll help you be healthy in the long haul. And prioritize what's important. Communicate that you have a need, absolutely, but don't feel like you have to do absolutely everything. Let's see. That's a legal thing. Looking for church plants. Looking for people in the area. There was one that I thought was interesting. Yeah, so there's been a couple of these lately. Somebody says the venue we meet in is not available for April 9th for Easter. So Easter is in a few months. April 9th, they can't meet. It's at a theater at the local university, which is closed that week. And basically, they're trying to figure out what to do about it. Now, here's the thing. It's always a challenge wherever you're meeting is saying you can't meet here anymore, or particularly if it's like a certain Sunday for whatever reason, you're renting somewhere and you can't use it, something like Easter. It's discouraging. Let me just say that. It is discouraging. It stinks. It's, you had these plans, you can't do them. The benefit of especially when it's out of your control, and people will empathize or sympathize with that a little bit, of doing something different because you have to, is that you can promote it and push it and talk about it a lot, and it doesn't feel like self-serving, or it doesn't feel like an infomercial, because you want people to know. So if you have to do something different on Easter because your place is closed, whatever you decide to do, there actually can be benefit to that because you can talk about it a lot without it feeling like, okay, we've heard enough about it. And so if you ever find yourself in that position, yes, scrambling, trying to figure something out, it stinks. But I would encourage you to take advantage of it and talk about, hey, on this Sunday, we're going to be at this place. We can't meet at our venue for whatever reason, but talk about it in terms of like, hey, we're really excited. Even if you're bummed and would rather meet in your own place, I totally get it. But still kind of like coming across as, hey, we're excited for this. We're doing something different. but especially when it's out of your control and you have to do something different, people are a lot more likely to go with the flow and not push back. I mean, you experienced this if you were leading during COVID. You changed a lot of stuff, and there was like no pushback because people got it. You couldn't meet in person, depending on what state you're in, different rules and regulations, and so you're trying a whole lot of new stuff with very little pushback. And so, if there's something new you want to try or something you want to do, that's the time to do it. And I would just promote the heck out of it. I would talk about it. I mean, if it's in April, I mean, even in February, I would start saying, hey, April 9th and Easter, just to mark your calendar and talk about it every single week. And you can get away with it when it's something that's really, really different. It doesn't come across as salesy, if that makes sense. And so whatever it is, talk about it in terms of excitement, and do not be hesitant to talk about it often, make videos, text your people, because you can kind of get away with more inviting and advertising, for lack of a better word, when it's something different. So don't be afraid to do that. Someone put a poll trying to find a nice but inexpensive welcome gift, torn between these three options with our logo on them. Our church is mostly college students and young adults. What do you think would be the most popular? And then you've got some sports water bottle, keychain flashlight, canned koozies, and then I think somebody else added a Starbucks gift card. Here's my thing with first time or new guest gifts. We mentioned this on the podcast. I am not a fan at all of church swag. If you're a new person, you don't care about the church, you know nothing about the church, you may never be back to the church again. If you've given me a church mug or flashlight or whatever, like, I don't care. It feels like, even if it's like a mug, like that's a big thing. Like, oh, everyone could use a mug, or maybe not. I mean, you might already have a million of them. But it's like, it feels, I know that's not the point, but it kind of feels self-serving for me to fill out a Connect card and get a gift of your church when I don't even know what I feel about it yet. I would highly recommend doing a first-time guest gift or a new guest gift. We call it new guest, not first time, because not everyone will come on their first time. And if you say it's for first-time guests and it's their second time, well, then they might not give you their information. So we use the term new guest gift. But anyway, give them something they actually want. So for us, we invite them to fill out a Connect card or text NCC Connect to 97,000. That's our key. You could do it via text as well. And then we give them a Chick-fil-A gift card, because who doesn't want a Chick-fil-A gift card, especially in the South? Ain't nobody not want one, okay? And so that was not grammatically correct, but that's the South for you. And so we give people a Chick-fil-A gift card. We've done various things in the past. Nothing's come close. The downside with a coffee gift card with Starbucks, which is also, it's not a bad option. It's just not everybody drinks coffee, like me. I don't like coffee. But yeah, so everybody eats food. Now, you might say some people might not like Chick-fil-A. Fine, I get it. But finding something that like most people like, if there's like something local, restaurant or whatever, you could do something like that. But I would highly recommend some sort of new guest gift, spending the money on it, because getting people's information and encouraging them to take a step, that's a great way to do it. But I would avoid anything with church swag. If I'm a new person, I do not care about the swag or your logo. And so I just would avoid that. I would buy like a gift card. We found Chick-fil-A gift cards has been the best. Yeah, somebody in the comments says, do not do church swag. Amen to that. Live stream question for Facebook. That's not going to be helpful. Hey, Brian Androsian posted in our Facebook group, Second Home Support Network. Be sure to check them out as he steps off on that new adventure. Excited for them. Somebody said, planting in our hometown after being away from some time. What was the experience like? Was it difficult? What went well? What would you change? Did the people you thought would help you plant buy in? I have all the questions. Well, Bryson, who has all the questions, as I'm recording this tomorrow, we're going to have a phone call about this. So here's some highlights I would give for the rest of you who are not going to be on that phone call. If you've planted in your hometown, let's say you grew up somewhere, you moved away, for whatever reason, you've come back, what's your experience like? Now, everyone's experience is going to be different. Some people it's going to be great. Some people it's going to be bad. My experience is that it was really good. I grew up in Cary, North Carolina, which is right outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, which is the capital. And so grew up there, part of a church that got pretty large. Then I went to college in Wilmington, North Carolina, stayed there for 2 years after we graduated. So I was gone for 6 years and then moved back to Raleigh, which is right next to Cary, but Raleigh itself. Worked at Verizon for 2 years. And then we started the church planting journey here in Raleigh. And for me, it was really, really helpful. I think part of what made it helpful was, one, I don't know, I moved back to Raleigh, not Cary. But I think part of it for me is that the Raleigh area is very transient. It's a very fast-paced. It's like top 10 fastest growing city in the United States in the last 7 or 8 years. So there's a lot of new people. I think if it's a more rural town, your experience is going to be different. And if it's a town where people move a lot, obviously your experience is going to be different. What I found was that we had people who were part of our church growing up, and for whatever reason had moved maybe to Raleigh and were no longer a part of that church anymore. We actually had some people because of the family connections, family friends, people who knew me when I was a kid, or my mom who's still in the area or friends with her, came and checked us out when we launched. And really, the only reason they came, maybe that first year, is because they knew me or knew my mom or knew my family or were part of the church we grew up in, and so they knew something about us. And so we had people who that's the only reason they came. If that connection had not have been there, they never would have come and never would have gotten connected. So the benefit of this is that you might get some people who will only come because there was some previous connection who never would have come otherwise, which helps connect with more people. The downside could be maybe if you had a really interesting past and did a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, obviously the gospel redeems, but maybe that could be difficult. If you live in a town where maybe people don't move very much, and there can be this sense of you maybe always viewed as a little kid. We've got some people that are part of New City that have been with us that have known me since I was a child. And have actually been really gracious, and that's never been a problem for us. They're also really spiritually mature followers of Jesus, so that's helpful. But for me, it was a positive experience, and yeah, grew up here, left, came back for various reasons, and actually worked really well for us. But I would say one of the biggest reasons it worked well is that some people have come and checked us out simply because there was a past family connection, and that's the only reason why they came. Otherwise, they never would have heard of us or known about us. And so you get a benefit of that. I'm sure there's cons as well, but a big benefit of it is you have some pre-built connections, and that people will come and check you out. And so that can be a helpful thing. Let's see. Do any of you have any recommendations for resources that help focus your time, energy, and elder meetings? I'm open to hear your thoughts, what you dislike about your current meeting. I'm a big fan of Larry Osborne, Sticky Teams. I guess it's a little misleading because it's really about elders. I mean, I guess you could apply it to other stuff too. But Larry Osborne's material is really practical. He also has a church called. He's got a couple of books like Sticky Books. One's called Sticky Church, which is about community groups. We actually run our community groups. That same model, we've had a lot of success. I kind of run our elder meetings currently very similar to what he says in Sticky Teams, and so it's really practical. I'll just say how we do it, and if you want to hear how someone does it, here's how we do it, and you can do whatever you want. We meet twice a month. We meet over Zoom one morning. The first, the second Monday of the month, I think it is. Yeah, we've changed it a little bit. The second Monday of the month, we meet over Zoom at like 7 a.m. or something like that, 7:15 for like an hour or 75 minutes. In that first meeting, we kind of go over the financials from the previous month, kind of more business stuff, anything going on that I need answers on, and kind of updates. And in the second meeting, we meet at my house on a Monday night, like the fourth Monday night of the month. And that's like 2.5 hours typically. And we have a meal together. The structure is we have a meal together, and then we kind of give updates. I mean, I have the most of them, but we give updates on stuff going on in the church in terms of things that people need prayer for, care stuff, like issues that people are dealing with. And then we pray, and then we talk through a couple of agenda items and really just spend time relationally with one another. And so that's how we meet. We meet twice a month. And then, of course, we email. There'll be phone calls, too, here and there if there's things that are coming up. One of the things that I do, I guess that's helpful, is I send an agenda the day before or a couple days before of here are some updates, just like it just literally says updates in bold, and then I do like bullet points or whatever, a couple sentences each of like just updates that I want them to know. And then I send them the agenda. I say agenda. And what I used to do, I don't do it now anymore because we're pretty good on keep going. But I used to, if you find yourself having a problem keeping to the time, is that you can do your agenda item and say in parentheses how many minutes. So it could be going to go over the profit and loss sheet from last month, 10 minutes. Budget, 10 minutes. Discussing some purchase, 10 minutes. Prayer, 20 minutes. Making some decision on X, Y, and Z, 30 minutes, whatever it is. But you can actually, what I would do is I would put that in there and let them, that way they kind of know you've thought through it. And so in the elder meeting, you can kind of move forward. But I would say this, especially if you enjoy your elders, you get along, it is going to be on you if you're leading it to push the agenda and not get sidetracked. I'm really big on trying to respect people's time. And so I'm really big on us ending. It's pretty much we meet from about 6 to 8:15. That's the official elder time when we meet at my house. Typically goes to about 8:30, but then we're done. By 8:30, I'm like, all right, we're done. Now we'll hang out and talk sometimes for a while, which I'm great with, but I want to make sure that they can leave. And so all that to say, Sticky Church by Larry Osborne, big fan of how he talks about structure and all that sort of thing. But I would set the agenda item ahead of time, and I would put time markings. Here's how long we're going to spend on this item if you feel like, things are taking too long. All right. Yeah, people looking for that. People looking for planters. People asking a portable church. We are not, well, I don't know how helpful this would be because we're not portable. Can you describe your post-service offering procedure? We won't pass plates, but we will use a metal ballot box in the back of the room for giving, and we need a good procedure that ensures accountability and security. For the accountability and security, I don't know. Well, I think we'd probably do the same anyway. Here's how we do it. We have the giving online. We also don't pass anything. We have giving boxes in the back of the auditorium and in the lobby. We do, at the end of service, mention every week how you can give. So if you don't pass something, I would recommend every week mentioning giving so that people are reminded of it. And so basically, we have two people that are assigned to give or to count offering. As a side note, if you do not give, you cannot be on the offering counting team. So I would encourage you to implement that as well. They go to the giving boxes together. They've got this, I don't know, blue bag thing. They put the money in there, and then they go into one of the office rooms, close the door, and count. And then we are located right next to a Wells Fargo, like literally, it's like we use their parking lot. So that's really, really helpful. And so we use them for banking. And they count the money, and then you put it in the plastic bag with the amount and all that stuff. And then they walk together over to the bank. What I might recommend in a portable setting, it's the same thing. They're going to count the offering together, two people at all times together. You could do more than that, but it's never a single person. Two people together at all times. They count it, and then it might be the same people every week or whatever. But I would get that offering dropped off Sunday after church, and I would make sure there's two people in the car. So you might have to. It might be like if there's a bank near you, or maybe it's the same person or two people because they live that way or whatever. But make sure there's two people at all times that have the money with them. It's never a single person. Count it together, drop it off together. Again, for us, it's as simple as they count it and they literally walk over to the bank. For your case, they might have to count it and get in the car, but just make sure there's two people at all times. So yeah, I don't know if that's helpful. Church plant looking for a great place to purchase pipe and drape. I just like this. Somebody mentioned reaching out to larger churches in the area. I would just say if there's ever a time you're looking for, pipe and drape or some like pretty generic supplies that all churches want, don't be hesitant to email some of the big churches in your area. They may or may not respond, but there's a good chance that they have a bunch of leftovers that you're looking for. And so I think that's a great thing to do. All right, let's see. That's not a helpful question. Greetings. Can anyone point me to some funding assistance for church plants or churches that help sponsor a church plant? Our church is 18 months old and we are growing. However, we have a serious need. Thank you. I don't know their context here. This is part of the reason, and I'm not, part of the reason why we're really big on not planting alone, whether it's a denomination, a network, a sending church, something. It can be really hard. I think so often we think of we just got to get to the launch Sunday, and if we can make it, then we can survive. But having outside support is so much bigger than just the launch phase. It is for longevity. And so if you're having funding problems and you're 18 months in, there's a lot of reasons for that. And you might have pursued, I'm not saying this person, but I'm just saying in general, you might have pursued that. And there can be various reasons why you do kind of have to plant solo. And so I understand and can be sympathetic towards that. But it will create a problem at some point. And so having a community, a network, or something that you can talk to if there's a problem is really big. And so I don't, if someone came to me and said, hey, we're 18 months in, we've got no support financially, we're in a big trouble, what should we do? I would not have a immediate solution on that end. But what I would say is get involved with a network, denomination, something, so that your church is not alone. And then hopefully you can kind of go from there. But it's really hard to raise money when you're by yourself and don't have a lot of relational connections. So check that out. Let's see. People looking for some stuff. That's not really helpful. In need of a sound system. Well, that's what we would say. Go ask for other churches. Somebody said, where do you get your lanyards? I don't know where we get our lanyards. I think we get them from a standard place. Well, here's what I would say about lanyards, though, for regular volunteer purposes. Whatever you get, I recommend. We have ones with our logo, and then it's a blank thing. I've been part of churches where they'll make you your own plastic one, which is really with your name on it, which is really, really cool. The downside to that is if you don't do that right away, it can kind of feel devaluing to show up to serve and not have a name tag. And so what we do is we have lanyards, just normal lanyards. I think you can get anywhere. It has our logo on it, and then it has a space to write a name. We actually have our coordinator, or it could just be whoever's over your serve team, every Sunday morning they write everybody's name on the lanyard and have it laid out so that they have one with their name on it. Now, it's really easy for someone to write their own name. Like, it takes no extra time, but there's this, you want people to feel cared for and valued, and people feel cared for and valued when they hear their name said and when they see their name written on stuff. And so what we use is a wet erase, not dry erase, because you can smudge it off. Use a wet erase marker. Get a bunch of lanyards that you can use every single week. And Sunday morning or Saturday night, if you have the lanyards, whoever's in charge of it, but before all the volunteers start showing up, write everyone's name down so it's ready, and then you can erase it and use it again next week. And so that's what we do for ours. And recommend it. Hey, friends, the church has grown to around 100 people, and we are working on reaching financial sustainability. Can anyone help share helpful tools, ideas, or experience? Just please don't just say teach on it. Some of the details of how you taught on it. Yeah, that's grateful. Yeah, I would hope. I guess it does a little bit depend on your context. I would hope if you are literally around 100 people, then you. I would hope that you're close to financial sustainability. I mean, that's a good number of people. And now, if you're a minority urban context, that could be hard. I don't think that's the case for this person. If it is the case, I apologize. So there are certain cases where that's not the case for sure. But for a lot of people, 100 people should be sustainable. So again, this is hard because I don't want to speak. I don't know the context, and you could be doing all these things. If I hear I have 100 people, but we're not financially stable, what that tells me, and I think this is why they're asking, is it hasn't been taught on consistently and well generosity. Because that's a good number of people to have your budget pretty set. For us, some of the things that we do at New City Church, we mention it every single week. So not during our next steps, but at the end of the service, we end our service the same way. We reiterate, if you're new, connect card or text, drop it off at the TO wall on the way out, get your Chick-fil-A gift card, answer any questions that you have. We do this all in like a minute. If you want to give to the mission of New City Church, here's how you can do so online at newcityrdu.com/give, or in the giving boxes located in the back of the auditorium or in the lobby. And New City Church, as you go this week, they reiterate the bottom line: Jesus loves you, let's say. And then we say, New City Church, you are sent. Takes 75 seconds. But we say it every single week. And so that's one thing, is you just want to make sure you're mentioning it every week, particularly if you don't pass the plate. Another thing I would say is that for our partners at New City Church, if you're a partner, or you know what we call membership, one of the expectations for us is that you have to give financially. And so when we do we call them Discover Lunches, when we talk through our vision, our values, our mission, all these sorts of things, we say one of the things to be a partner is, one of our expectations is that you have to give financially. Now, we don't say you have to give 10%. Obviously, we're not checking how much you make, but you have to financially support it and give to it. And so there's that expectation that if you say yes, and so there are times when people sign the partnership thing, say, hey, I'm ready, I'm in. And what part of our follow-up process is, hey, where are you serving? Where are you interested in serving if you're not? What group do you want to join if you're not part of a group? And what is your what is your plan to give financially? If they haven't given yet, we literally say that. And so we ask our people to give. And then we talk about it a lot. I mean, this might not be super helpful. And I know we mentioned this on this episode. Like, just not afraid, never apologize to talk about giving. Jesus talks about money a lot. He says, where your heart is, there, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So our finances direct our heart do not direct our finances. We have to have the habit of trusting the Lord. And so I understand, like, don't just say teach on it. That's not helpful. But what I would say is talk about it whenever you get the chance. Don't apologize for it, and talk about its importance. And so we have, I don't know the episode number, we have a couple of episodes on how to increase generosity by God's grace. It's something that it's always been particularly done well here at New City, or people have been particularly generous. But just don't be afraid to talk about it, but make sure you're talking about it every single week in Next Steps. And then, one of the other things that we do is we send quarterly, not yearly giving statements. So we're very proactive financially. We will say, here's, year-to-date projections, blah, blah, blah. Here's what we've actually taken in, and here's the difference. And then a couple of quick wins or a couple of updates, and they get their giving statement once a quarter, so that's a way to remind them. Another thing that we do that might be helpful for you is I have this, like, canned, email that I have saved. And every week I have on my reminders to go and see if we have any first-time givers. So most people give through online. We use Subsplash, so it's really easy to find out if they've given for the first time. And it says first-time giver, and I send them an email basically thanking them for their generosity, thanking them for trusting us, saying they're going to hear from us once a quarter, and saying if you ever have any questions financially about our church, please never hesitate to reach out. And no one ever asks me any questions. But it shows that we're trying to be intentional with their money, and so that's another way as well, too, to keep money in front of your people. So we have an episode, I don't know the number, you'd have to look back a little bit, but we do a lot of stuff on money as well. I asked a couple weeks ago, what sermon series is everyone doing to start off the year? And lots of people mentioned that. prayer. What do you do for your offering time? Did that differ during your soft launch / preview services? So that's what we do. We don't mention it. I mean, you can do it whenever. We don't really mention it until the end. Now, I will say this too: if you ever do like a video or baptism Sundays, or a video of like someone, the way your church has impacted somebody, or if you're ever celebrating anything awesome that happened at your church, you also always want to say your generosity made this happen. You want to link that because it is the generosity that makes the church possible. So, but for us, we just mention it every single week at the end of the sermon. Now, sometimes, again, if it's part of the sermon, or, I'm very, very quick to mention generosity, financial generosity. I'm also, too, I think this might be helpful. When I talk about financial generosity, I'm pretty always clear that I'm not just talking about giving to the church. Now, giving to the church is part of it, but we just want people to be generous in general. And so our offering time is pretty quick at the end of the service, but we mention it every single week. And so I think that's what's helpful. In terms of soft launch preview services, I mean, I would do the same thing. I mean, maybe I would spend a little bit more time on it than we do now because, we do it every single week. But I would say, hey, if you're interested in giving to the mission of this church, here's how to do it. Now, if you have a million different ways to give, that can be confusing. If it's like give in line, give in person, text, call your grandma, write a letter, like that's too much. So you want to really limit your options, but just make sure you're saying it every single week. Someone said, I made a very basic website using Canva and Google Domains. There are some drawbacks to the method, but for $1 a month, it could be a great way for a church plant to have a website. I would just say I'm a big fan of the Church Co. The Church Co. In fact, if you go to the Church Co., you can get 40% off for 2 years if you type in practical at checkout. But they're really so you can get it for $29 a month. You can get their premium plan for $29 a month for 2 years, and it's super plug and play. It's crisp, it's clean, and their customer support is amazing. We've used a couple of website builders over the years. We've used them for the past 2 years. We used them for the practical planting website. In fact, Brian, who's been with me on the podcast for the first 3.5 years, him and his wife, their new foster adoption kinship website is also through the Church Co. So that's who I would recommend. It's not very expensive, and it should be a lot more expensive in my opinion. Everyone said, has anyone ever needed to do their Easter service at a different time than a morning time? We found out that the banquet hall where we worship, is looking to do something Easter morning, so they got to move it. So I'm all for trying things differently, but for Easter, it's Easter we're talking about, especially in a very transition city like Pittsburgh. Not sure the trade-off is worth it. Anyway. Again, I would say that stinks. I'm really sorry. My opinion, I'm always like good for trying new things, even if it's not going to be something you do repeatedly. But I'm with you. I think Easter Sunday morning, especially if you're already meeting on Sunday mornings, is what you would want to do. So I would recommend finding another place. And then just like I mentioned earlier, advertising, pushing it, talk about it all the time, get tons of momentum around it. But I definitely would try to find something else so that I could meet on Easter morning as opposed to not Easter morning. Someone says, we're a portable church and I'm looking for a station for our screens slides person, the one running Purpose Center, to set the laptop on. I've gotten some suggestions. Oh, they're looking for like a portable solution. I can't help you with that because we are not portable. This one's for me from a few weeks ago. I'll mention this. This was around Christmas time, but Easter, anything you have coming up. I think we've all seen all these church Facebook ads, or Instagram too, whatever, but Facebook's like the culprit of advertising their services, and you live like 15 states away from them. Now, so I get it. Some of these churches are large. They've got a large online presence, but all the ones that I was seeing was not that. They were these small churches or regular sized churches, whatever. Whenever you run Facebook ads or any type of ads, you can target by interest. That's great. That's why I'm seeing them. But you also need to target by location. Always target by location. Otherwise, you're spending and you're wasting your money. So I want to say that. Number one, target by location. Number two, anytime you do an ad with a landing page for an event at your church, I can't tell you how many of these ones that I saw that did not say the location or sometimes even the time. Like you can't just say, well, come to our church. If I'm a new person, which is what your ad is targeting to, and I don't see your address, I don't know where to go. So the address needs to be the top of your website, but it's on your landing page. People are not going to be clicking around to try to find it if they can't find it. Your address and the time of your event needs to be super clear. And so if you are going to run ads, those are some big misses that people have said. Have you stepped out, planted without an organization or team? What was your main motivation for planting a church rather than the approach of revitalizing an already established but dying church? Yeah, I mean, I would recommend. I mean, step out, but not by yourself. I would recommend using a network. So, yeah, I don't have a good question for the answer for that. Have a question. Now we'll do a few more. Question: how do you structure your communication responsibilities across a team of all part-time staff? Somebody can say amen to this, or volunteer led. If you're listening to this, you probably got part-time staff or volunteer staff. To expand a bit more, excuse me, we are a 2-year-old church and have a team of 5 couples. All of us work full-time jobs. In addition, lately we've had things fall through the cracks. A lot of stuff there. Basically, when you've got people, you're not full-time, you're not seeing each other all the time. Maybe the only time you see each other is at staff meeting, or maybe the only time you see each other is on Sunday morning. How do you communicate? This is a challenging question. Here's just what I would say. Well, I'll just give you one piece of advice. I don't have like a good overall answer. This is what I said in the comments to this question. The problem is that there are so many communication channels: phone call, text, email, GroupMe, Slack, social media, Marco Polo. All of the social medias have their own direct messaging option. It's fine to use more than one channel to communicate with one another, but I would designate only one as like the official one in which everyone must respond to. So you can communicate various ways, but I would be very clear, like, this is the one that if you get correspondence to on this channel, you have to respond to it. So for example, our staff can text each other. We could call each other. We have GroupMe, and so it's like kind of like if you want to send a text but don't need something urgent, you can put it in GroupMe. But for us, we have made email our primary, like, important mode of communication. So if you get an email, you have to respond to it within 20. Typically for us is within 24 hours of a workday. You don't need to respond right away. You don't need. I don't even have email on my phone, so this is not like you need to check your email every 10 minutes. Not at all. But you do need to check it at some point and respond to it. And so that's one of the things that's helped us with a lot of part-time staff over the years. A lot of people raising their support is that if you get an email, you must respond. And so whatever that looks like for you, finding here are the different ways we communicate with each other, but this channel is the one that, like, if you hear from one of us, it's like we got to be clear, because not everyone checks their texts all the time, or not everyone checks Facebook Messenger, or not everyone checks GroupMe, but just be really clear on one. Try to find one channel that everyone else has to communicate on, that has to respond to, and at least that might help a little bit. All right. Best place to buy something for kids. Mobile church. Yeah. I'll just say this. Mobile church facility moving to a long-term facility. Best place to buy somewhat permanent moppable kids flooring. I would just say this. If you are launching a church or moving from a portable location to a permanent location, or maybe you're upgrading a permanent location to a bigger permanent location, one of the best things you can do that doesn't take away from your giving but helps people give generously to your church is to create a registry, like you would a wedding registry or a baby registry. Create a registry online with items that you need for your kids ministry. People love buying things for children, and they love buying tangible things. I would much rather, if you're saying, hey, we're trying to raise money for $5,000 for our new kids ministry, I could give you $50. Or if you say, hey, here's a list of things that we need, that you can literally go and order it, and you can choose where your $50 can go, I'm much more likely to do that. So I would always recommend do it. There's sites that do this, and you can put links to Amazon and Target or wherever you want to get your stuff from. Make a kids registry if you're moving to a new building or starting whatever, and people will still give and just say, hey, we'd love for you to buy something for our place. For our kids ministry, and people will do it. So if you need that, you can do it for other areas of the church. I've seen people try to do it for production stuff. It's just not the same. I've just seen, and personally, we've done this twice at New City, both when we launched and then when we moved into our building that we moved into the week before COVID. We did this again. We made a kids registry list of all the new items that we needed and just sent that out to everyone, and they could specifically buy their own thing. I'd highly recommend that you do that. And it works really well. Hey, everyone, part of a church plan. Our team has been talking about getting funding. Does anyone know of companies or organizations to contact for grant or for funding? My big thing is to go through the work and the effort of joining a network or denomination to make sure that you can do that. All right, I'll do one more. Let's see if we can find one more good one. Let's see. This one's helpful. Small. That's not helpful. Kids ministry. Let's do this one. Where can we find good kids curriculum, sermon coloring for kids? Where can we purchase cheap and nice furniture for kids ministry? I'm probably not this is probably not the best one for me because I don't really know how our kids director, Emily, is. She's awesome. I do know there's a lot of free resources like Life Church. They do a lot of free stuff. We've used the curriculum in the past, and you can adapt it. And so I think Life Church is a great place for curriculum and stuff like that. So Yep, 501c3. Do that. Would anyone be willing to share some inspiration for some mailers that you've done? We've never done, we'll end with this one. We've never done mailers at New City Church. I'm not necessarily against them. I just think there are better ways to do that now. For example, social media ads and targeting. You can target things a lot better, and then you can see results. Like you can see your cost per click. You can see how many people have viewed it and seen it. And so if you're only going to do like if you had like a $500 or $1,000, something like that, I would much rather use that for online ads, even Google AdWords, than I would mailers. I think mailers can work if they're in conjunction with other things, but mailers are not inexpensive. And so if that's going to be the primary bulk of your advertising is going to go to mailers because it's a new church or a new service or a new thing or a new event, I would spend my money on online advertising because you can target it and you can see the results. Mailers are fine as long as they're part of a bigger overall strategy and not their own thing. So I hope that was helpful today. Those are some questions on the Practical Church Planting Facebook group. So if you're not a part of that, be sure to join it. Again, be sure to check out missionsupport.com and practicalplanting.com if you want to join the Practical Church Academy. If you want personal access to me and to get some more real hyper-focused on what you're doing and feedback for your ministry. Again, our next live ministry training, our Zoom call is going to be tomorrow at 3 p.m., talking about how to stay on top of your task list and particularly tailored to ministry and to not feel so overwhelmed. So that's happening. So you're going to have to join the Practical Church Academy to get involved with that. Even if you can't make the live time, you'll have access to the recording and a whole bunch of other resources. So check out practicalplanting.com to learn more about the Practical Church Academy. I'm really excited about that, to be able to focus. I get lots of emails and messages from you guys. I love responding to that, but I'm really excited to focus in on more people who are really wanting to invest in themselves and their ministry and some more one-on-one attention. And so you can check that out. You can also send me personal questions about your ministry through the Practical Church Academy, and we'll answer that as well. And next week on the podcast, really excited we're going to be talking about tips for increasing your Sunday attendance. So we're really big at New City Church on the online, engagement, live stream, doing that well. But this year we're also focusing really a lot on trying to let people know the importance of their local gathering and doing things to emphasize that importance. And so we're going to talk about that next week, what that looks like. Until then, have a great week, and we'll see you next week on Practical Church Planting.